Hey guys, today we're going to talk about three different foreign language film movies. One is in Spanish, the other in Norwegian, and the last one in Japanese. So let's start. The first movie I'm going to talk about is Madres Paralelas or Parallel Mothers, starring Penelope Cruz and directed by famed Spanish director Pedro Almodóvar. This movie is about a woman that becomes pregnant after being in a love affair with an anthropologist, and she becomes pregnant at the same time that a younger woman does, and they become friends, and then their motherhoods become entangled because everything becomes just this big, campy, fantastic currents in their lives, and it's really, really amazing. I mean, this movie can be very funny at some points, and it can be extremely dramatic in some others, and some things that you don't expect to happen, but if you have seen other Almodóvar films, you kind of know they are going to happen, because he loves to make these movies with everything is possible. Something that he really likes to do is to make movies about women that are powerful, women that have all the power in the world. I mean, this woman, played by Penelope Cruz, in the opening act of the movie, wants to find the burying grounds of many men that were taken in the Spanish Civil War and kill them outside her village. That's a very powerful thing throughout the movie, because it unites the past with the present and with the future concerning their motherhoods. And it's very interesting because it really tells the story about Spain, about the pain that it means to be a woman and a mother, but also how these specific women handle it day to day and with their jobs and their friends and their families, and how sometimes they become disconnected from other people because they have to carry all this weight by themselves. He makes always these movies about really, really powerful women, and when he's mixing the drama and the comedy and the craziness, the campiness that he exudes, Pedro Almodóvar, that's when he is at his best. This is one of his best movies. Not as good as Volver, which was with Penelope Cruz also, not as good as All About My Mother, there are other ones that are really, really great, but this one is one of the most recent ones from him that are really, really good. Penelope Cruz's performance is just amazing. She's just a fantastic actress, and I have to say she's a little bit better when she's speaking in her native Spanish and not so much when she's doing English roles. Other things that are great about this movie are the art direction, it's really good, the cinematography, and of course the score by Alberto Iglesias. It's really, really good. So if you haven't watched this movie, please do. The second movie we're going to talk about is The Worst Person in the World, directed by Joachim Trier. He's from Norway, and it stars Renate Reinsve as a woman that doesn't really know what to do with her life. She chooses one thing to study, then another, and she meets different kind of men, and she wants everything but nothing at the same time. Some of the choices she makes them because they are easy and they are not bothersome to her, but it's not really because she wants that in her life. Makes us realize how equal we are in the world, because yes, this movie is set in Oslo, Norway, but this happens to everyone everywhere, to be honest. We always feel that we are in a place where we don't really belong to, and I know some people are going to say, no, I've never felt that, but the ones of us that really struggle with the world, basically, we experience that we are never really sure about what we're going to do, what is our role here, what are we supposed to be doing. Do we want to be parents? Do we want to be super successful in a job? Do we want the love of our lives or something? What do we want, and how do we want it, and when do we get it, basically? And those are all the questions that the character played by Renate Reinsve asks herself in this movie. And sometimes she comes off as not a very agreeable person to be around. She's not the best girl in the world. I mean, she does really poor choices, but everyone does poor choices, and I think we can identify with her at the same time that we feel a little bit at distance with her, because we realize what her mistakes have been. And not even when she is confronted to a very difficult thing in her life, not even then she changes completely. I mean, at the end of the movie, she's not that different from the beginning, but she has matured a little bit, and she has used some of the things she has learned in order to be more her, if you want. And I think that's what is really attractive from this movie, that it becomes a story about ourselves, about everyone, about how we feel and how we navigate the world, and that's really amazing. The performance by Renate Reinsve is really, really great. She could have been nominated for Best Actress. This movie is also nominated for Best International Film and Best Original Screenplay, and the screenplay screenplay is just beautifully done, because again, it really illustrates everyone and everything, and in such small world. You think of Norway as this really faraway country in most times, that people must be cold, that must be really different, and they kind of are. Oslo is just such a different city than my city, for example, but it really makes us feel like, oh, that we're not that different. I can really understand what she's going through and why she's responding and as she's responding. So it's a fantastic movie. It can get annoying sometimes, but we keep watching because we kind of want her to succeed, or we want someone to succeed in this movie. I think this is very recommended. Please watch it. And the last movie I'm going to talk about is Drive My Car, directed by Japanese director Ryusuke Hamaguchi. This movie tells the story about a theater. He writes plays and he directs plays, and he also acts in plays. This movie is also interesting because it has a prologue. That means that the opening credits of the movie happen 40 minutes after it actually begins, which is kind of funny because the movie is 3 hours long. Those first 40 minutes, I call them a prologue because the story hasn't really begun. It's like seeds of what's going to be important for him in the latter part of the movie, and it's not the best part of the movie. It's things with his wife, his former life, but then after the 40 minutes he moves to another city to have a new job and to try to make this play that he's really confronted with, because it was a play he was beginning to do with his wife in a way. So that's very interesting, and he's confronted with different kinds of people and different sensibilities that he was not ready to be with. And the real story is that he is paired with a driver, a young woman who is his driver, who's very silent, but slowly along the movie she becomes more confident in him and tells him things that she hadn't really told anyone, and he learns from her in order to improve the play basically, and improve his treatment of the actors, because he's hard on them, but then he realizes maybe I should change it up a bit. And this movie is really great because of the screenplay, which is also nominated for an Academy Award, Best Adapted Screenplay. It's adapted from a short story, and the best part are the dialogues. We don't really understand why the characters react in certain ways and not in others, because we are Westerners and it's so different, the sensibilities in Japan, and they can be really affected by the traditions and by history and all of that. But the dialogue is always so full of everything. The dialogue, it means something. It's just not thrown away. And when the movie is silent, when no one is talking, the scenery, the cinematography, the art direction, everything else is speaking. And that's how a movie should be. I'm really surprised that such an artistic, articulate movie could be nominated for Best Picture, because it's not really that common, sadly. This movie is really slow paced. It takes its time to go through the movements, and it's just a window into a person's life. It's one of those evolving things that you just understand that people have to live with that, learn from that, and liberate themselves from some demons that they have accumulated through the years. And you have to understand it, and you have to enter the culture and just be there and breathe the culture. I was really surprised by this movie because at one point I was like, oh, this is too dense, this is too slow. It's filled with theater references, and it's very artistic, very poetic sometimes, so it's like, oh, this might be too heavy, but it isn't. It's really sensitive, and it's really slow, and it's really simple in a way, but really, really effective. Nominated for Best Picture, actually the first Japanese movie ever to be nominated for Best Picture, which is amazing. This is the end of my review of these 3 movies. Tell me what you think about them in the comments down below. Of course, also give a like, share this video on your social media, and also subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much, and goodbye.